Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It's 12 o'clock here in London. Thanks for joining us. I'm Hamish Adurian, joined by Spike Kaiser. And this afternoon, we are going to talk a little bit about brokers and some of the challenges, or sort of more prosaic challenges possibly faced by brokers right across the financial markets. Typical brokerage, as we know, is a complex beast, involves many different processes, many different members of staff across different teams. And part of the challenge that we have as technology vendors serving brokers and broader financial markets ecosystem is what can we do to make their lives easier, help them increase business, deal with some of those problems that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. If you're a broker, maybe you're looking at dealing with some of those creaking older systems that are maybe stopping you from bringing on new customers, increasing volumes. Maybe you're having to respond to changes in exchange rules, changes in market structure that are really throwing a bit of a spanner in the works on how you've done things so far. So all of those things are very much on the agenda. We won't cover everything in the next 20 minutes, but hopefully we can touch on a couple of maybe real world challenges that we tend to come across, we tend to hear as we build solutions based on our SinaraTLC platform for brokers across the markets. So joining me is Spike, who is one of our senior engineers and designers here at Sinara. Spike, you just want to very briefly introduce yourself, 10-second summary, and then we might get cracking on a few different topics.
Yeah, sure thing. Yes, I'm Spike. I've been at Sinara for over 6 years now, I think. One of our senior engineers and tech leads on our TLC software and solution. And yeah, manage a part of our engineering department.
Brilliant. So Spike, I think the first thing that comes to my mind, and for everyone listening, of course, feel free to drop a question in the chat at any point. That should be open to you now, and we'll try our best to get to them as we go along. And if we don't, obviously, we'll feel free to drop us an email afterwards and we'll get back to you. Always very happy to chat. Thinking about what the average broker really has to do, Spike, there are a lot of trades, I think it's fair to say, and they don't always come in the same way, in the same place, or even necessarily via the same system. So you might have different departments, different systems, different routes essentially by which a trade is executed, and all those things need to be captured. What's your take on how we deal with those sorts of things? Is that the common scenario? What do we need to be aware of when we're having to pull together all these different channels of trades and make sure there's a unified way of looking at it?
Yeah. So we obviously cater to a bunch of our clients have a bunch of different existing processes and existing systems that their trades come through, or different channels and that sort of thing. And speaking from experience working on a TLC solution, we have focused on a bunch of different solutions. Ideally, we have a web GUI that people enter trades through that allows us to add in a bunch of quality of life improvements, catch mistakes and errors and that sort of stuff, because we can have a bunch of validation on the front end. But also we acknowledge that a lot of the time you'll be getting stuff from other processes, or you'll be wanting to import a huge amount of trades in one go that you don't want to manually enter. So we offer a bunch of solutions that include manual entry for a web app. We can also offer solutions such as importing Excels or CSV files in a bunch of different formats that we can obviously completely cater to each client individually and what systems they currently have in place. So for previous clients, a lot of time we've catered to mass imports, mass uploads, and that sort of stuff, as well as a more kind of modern, nice GUI interface that has a bunch of those quality of life improvements as well.
Think about the CSVs. Why would you still need those? So if you put in a shiny new system, I suppose, for lack of a better phrase, that should handle everything automatically, why would you still have scenarios where somebody would still want to upload a file, for instance? So is it important
So
that we still cater to those scenarios?
yeah, so I think obviously, again, so from past experience of TLC and previous clients, we don't aim to replace an entire workflow in one go. We can obviously do that, but
Yeah.
a lot of time clients have systems that they don't want to replace and that they already use, And so we want to be able to work with that data. And so they want to be able to, for example, export from one system, but still be able to import into systems that we then provide. And the common way to do that is obviously CSV. You can also do that through APIs if that's a possibility with our existing stuff. But the CSV really there is to offer flexibility because we know that a lot of people, obviously, in the industry still use that. And there's a lot of that kind of, it's an easy way to work with their current processes where we also guide them to kind of towards that solution of using the kind of cleaner and safer approach of manual entry through our own systems. But yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, we need to provide a range of trade capture solutions, and that's what we provide with our TLC components. We have direct entry. If a trader needs executed a trade, then you just immediately enter it. It's coming through other systems that can come in automatically by API, but also if literally you need to do a manual export or even say an automated export from another system where there isn't, maybe it's an older platform or whatever else, we're not still cutting you off from those things as well. All that will be
Exactly.
integrated. It's a funny thing, really, thinking about Excel. Often a lot of the work we'll tend to do is, someone will say, yes, this is this really old Excel spreadsheet that a trader might be using. It's done the job for many years, and we'll come in and we'll deliver the functionality to replace that, do it more properly, so it's not locked up in an Excel spreadsheet, which maybe only one person understands. But the reality often is, you can't fully expect all those things to disappear in one go. And if we're implementing a solution, how do we interoperate with that? How do we introduce a new solution whilst not forcing everybody to completely change the way they do everything? I suppose is maybe the question.
Yeah, so I think it starts at the specification side. So once we, when we go to the client, we'll go on site. I go on site all the time and make sure that we talk cross departmental with everyone that's going to interact with the system, what they want, what their daily, and get an idea of what their day to day looks like, how they're going to interact, things that both there we're looking for not just what they currently do and just replacing it. We're looking for how can we make improvements as well, obviously. But the key part there is rather than just talking to like a project manager on their side or something like that, we make sure we talk to entire departments across departments to understand how people interact with the system, what they want to keep, what they want to change. And then from them, basically build up a specification and a document where we kind of say, like, this is how, what data the format needs to be in to go into the system. Are you okay with that? Do you want to make changes? That sort of stuff. So it's a lot of, at the beginning of projects, we make sure that it's going to work for everyone and figure out what kind of formats they want to import with, how they want to export, how they want to enter, that sort of stuff.
I think that's a really important point, but obviously we're talking about this in the context of data capture, trade capture, and so on. It's a lot broader than that, isn't it? It's really about what you want to get out of this new system. If you're, say, replacing some part of your front office or something broader than that, there may be things about your current process that you quite like. There obviously will be some problems, which is why you're replacing it. So what you're saying, in effect, is at the start of the project, we want to be sure that we capture almost those real business requirements before we start thinking, okay, which components are we implementing? What are we customizing? And so on. Is that right?
Yeah. You obviously want to de-risk and remove that kind of anxiety I think you have when you're going to replace a big system that you're kind of depending on. And the first way to do that is to make sure you're aware of exactly everything it does, even to the minute thing, which sometimes you'll be like, why does it do that? That's weird. But if the organization is used to it and the processes around that, you first want to make sure you're making everyone comfortable that you can do everything the current system does before you then start looking at what improvements we can make and working with them for the next phase of how do we improve the system? What can we do to improve your day to day and make your lives easier, basically.
Okay. And everyone obviously will have their own pace at what they want to do and their own priorities and so on. So obviously we need to match with that rather than trying to force them down, a particular route. I think one of the areas where I think we've been doing quite a fair bit of work recently is just reporting, the sheer number of reports, which we had trades earlier. A lot of those trades ultimately will then end up being represented in various different types of reports, where there's obviously red reports, might be internal management reports, it might be reports that are automatically sent out to clients, for example. How do we deal with those? So we've got huge amounts of data going into the TLC database. How do we then allow clients to then generate the myriad types of reports, some obligatory, some more informal, that they might want to do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so again, we kind of come at it from an angle from the engineering part of we want to offer maximum flexibility, again, to make sure clients can not only at that point of when we write that document at the beginning of the project of what you might want to do, obviously time, things change, reports come up, and 6 months later you'd be like, oh, actually, I want to run this report. You don't then want to come to Sinara and be like, can you go and code this whole thing for me? Again, so we offer flexibility from the get-go. And so for previous clients, for example, we want to offer different avenues. The first one obviously is through these web apps and stuff that we build where you can, for example, if you've got like a trades or a warrant table which shows you all of your warrants or all of your trades or orders or whatever, you can fully customize those tables and add columns and data and bring in all the data you want. And then you can just click a big export. So we allow anyone who accesses the system to configure exactly what they want to see and export it whenever they want. We also offer flexibility from if you want to do more like routine stuff, we can offer access to database directly. For example, through like Power BI, we've done for previous clients where we provide views to the entire database, and they can, through their own Power BI client-side software, they can just build whatever views and exports they want and reports and export from there as well. And again, that kind of export flexibility, both either from the GUI or through Power BI, allows that flexibility that the clients can and users can change exactly what they want to see, what order they want to see it in to get it into either reports that they want to see just for readability, or for example, to get it into the exact format they need to import it into another system that might be downstream or something like that as well. So
I don't
flexibility
think
is really
anyone,
key.
yeah, I don't think no one has actually asked this question. I suspect it might be on some people's minds. Do we actually help set Power BI up
We do,
for
yes,
customers?
yes,
How does
yeah.
that work?
So again, we work with, and there'll be a specification phase, the beginning of like the Power BI, like separate project essentially, where we talk to whoever's going to be using the Power BI on that side, what kind of views or access they want the data in, make sure it's easy, and we kind of show them the structure of our database, show them how to use it. We help them set up Power BI if they haven't used it before. A lot of people maybe haven't used Power BI before, which for those who don't know is that it's a Microsoft kind of database access application that is very intuitive to use. But still, we can go on site to the clients and show them how to set it up for them, show them how to create some template views, that sort of stuff, and kind of help train them on how to use that. And we work with them to then obviously provide the Power BI stuff from our side on the server side on the database as well. So we don't just kind of throw in the deep end and say, here's go use Power BI and leave it at that. We definitely help set everything up.
What's a good example of a type of report that a broker might want to create using Power BI, maybe as opposed to what we would essentially build in to a
yeah. So
core
I
web
think
application?
so stuff like you can view like daily or monthly positions for across desks, that sort of stuff. You can track any type of like order type or something specific report you want to run. Again, warrants is a good example of something that you might want to report on. Anything where I can imagine where you have like a weekly report or a bi-weekly report or a monthly report, and sometimes potentially what's in those reports differs ever so slightly. You can set up a report for each, and then you basically save this template, and it's there for you to just basically automate the process. It's a one-click export once you've set it up to begin with. So those are kind of ideal scenarios for things, which again you can do through our web apps, and anything you can do for Power BI, you can also do through the web app, which is my personal preference because I like modern kind of GUIs and stuff, and it's a bit easier to use. But if you want that really full control of being able to access every single property on and more niche stuff on thing, basically we provide access to all of the data from our database through Power BI. So if you really want like kind of access to everything and really customized views, Power BI is a good route to go.
Talked a lot about access to everything. I think people might be wondering about security. Obviously, it's a hot topic on everyone's minds, increasingly so with recent cyber incidents as well. How do we regulate control access, not necessarily just on the Power BI side, but more broadly, I suppose, in our systems to make sure the right people have access to these things? Obviously, bearing in mind the types of solutions we build, where you tend to have internal access, brokers, AEs, finance staff, for example, but also broker clients can log in and put in orders, put in requests for quotes, and so on and so forth. How do we control this access where you have quite a lot of people potentially accessing these things?
Yeah, so we actually have an internal system that we've built, which is an identity provider essentially. But essentially for our GUI and our web apps, we have everything that you would expect from any modern system. So you've got good controls around permissioning, and you can do that, and that's fully configurable per project and per client. You can have different roles for internal staff at the brokerage or client users and that sort of stuff, and you can even then dissect that into smaller groups of maybe an admin user on the client side can do more than another side. But along with that, we then have part of our identity thing is you have two-factor authentication, which locks down and obviously makes sure that only people who have access to that account have access. We have the ability to customize timeouts. So if depending on how, there's always that kind of barrier between ease of access and security. If you want to, you can have people time out every 10 minutes and have to relog in to re-authenticate. Clients obviously have different criteria on how often they want to time out, maybe per device, they can time out, that sort of stuff. And the Power BI side as well, we obviously lock down by IP address, by all those sort of things you can lock down by. And before any project goes live, we also often bring in external consultants to kind of run through security and make sure that everything passes and there aren't any issues.
Just so we have that external rubber stamp, not more than rubber stamp, full check on everything that we've done as well. That sounds pretty comprehensive. Just thinking, going back to the report, so maybe more broader than that, really, where you have, let's put it another way, we often have a lot of real-time processes. Part of our proposition for TLC is that you can see things as they happen in real time. If your positions change, a trade goes in, you see it immediately. You don't have to wait until the next batch process. But maybe the reality is that you can't eliminate those big, bulky processes entirely. Some things can only be done at a certain time of day, for example. You can only run a certain settlement process when a certain price comes in. You can't avoid that entirely. How do we deal with those big, bulky operations? And might involve reports as well, generating a whole bunch of reports that need to go out to a customer or all customers at a certain time. What's our process within TLC generally of handling these sorts of bulky operations that involve large volumes of trades and orders potentially?
So we have, as you said, there's a plethora of stuff that we need to do for our clients that runs daily or hourly or at a set time of day. And a lot of the time there is bulk actions with a lot of trades and end of day and that sort of stuff, or benchmark orders, something like that, where you're doing something on a set time. Performance at that point those are the key things that we test for as part of we have a non-functional requirements essentially that we agree with the client of get an understanding of how many trades they have per day, what the system needs to be able to handle. We then make sure that we times that by 5 to make sure that if there's a busy day, we're still not going to run into any issues. And all of our QA department tests around those scheduled events to make sure that even with 5 times, 10 times as much data as we're actually expecting, it still runs without an issue. And then on top of that, as part of those non-functional requirements, things happen. We've seen issues with Amazons and Cloudflares and stuff, and tools that people rely on can go down. We make sure that if, for example, a key event that does need to happen once a day doesn't run for whatever issue, so there's a power cut in the server warehouse or whatever, we make sure that we have monitoring tools set up on our support side. That means that we basically get an alert almost instantly if any report or daily process doesn't run. And then we design it in such a way from the engineering side that then we can very easily manually kick off those processes on recovery and be like, we need to generate that report because it was missed 10 minutes ago or something like that. So we really do have a lot of fail safes as well.
Okay, I think you may well just have answered the question that came in on that. You touched on this as your brokers to deal with extended or batch processes. How do you deal with fails during these key extended processes? I think you sort of answered.
I think I most preempted the question. Good timing.
I hope. What about on the support side? Obviously, if let's say there, for whatever reason, something has failed, the price just hasn't come in, for example. So might not necessarily be a system or an app bug, but the price just hasn't come in. The exchange hasn't sent something through. Possibly that's a more common case. That's, let's say, an application failure. How do we handle that specific scenario where let's say the exchange just hasn't sent the price we're expecting, but we need to do all the calculations, for instance? Does our support team have to proactively contact a broker? Is there something that we can do? How does that tend to play out?
Yeah, so the first part of that is at the beginning of the project. We talk about we identify these eventualities that might happen. Some of these systems are running for 10 years plus. But like at some point, there's going to be an issue where a third party, market data hasn't worked for one day or they've changed something. And so at the beginning of the project, we try and identify all of these issues, which now we're very aware of as we've been around for 30 plus years. So we write down those issues, then talk to the client and figure out how they would expect us to handle those events. So some clients, for example, for market data, for stuff that isn't super critical, they're like, just use yesterday's data if you've still got the market data, which we often do have. And so depending on the case, a lot of the time you can use stuff that's already in the system. It doesn't have to be fully up to date. If it is a case where we're like, we've written down that if X, Y, Z doesn't happen, then please contact the client for us to confirm how we would like to proceed. Again, our support team will immediately get notified if we ever miss an event or something like that. And we'll follow the process of reaching out to the client to basically discuss them and let them know something hasn't happened and ask them what they would like us to do. And of course, we're very quick to act and make sure that everything is then imported or amended the way it should be. And that can be manual intervention. It can be, imports into databases. It can be all sorts of things where we can, sometimes the data is published somewhere, but the API is down. We can go and fetch that market data. Again, we hate Excel, but you can even bring that into an Excel and import it into the database and that sort of stuff. So there's often a lot of workarounds that we can do, that we can action.
And we would be supporting the client, the broker, effectively in doing all of that. So the Sinara support team would be working with them, make sure the data is imported if it needs to be amended and so on. I think that actually makes me think about something else. Amending things often, quite a lot of time seems to be spent on just correcting bits of data here and there. And it's not, I don't think it's necessarily because somebody literally mistyped something, but that does happen as well. Mistakes can happen for all sorts of reasons. A downstream system could have done an incorrect calculation, a piece of data is missing, or whatever else. So we need to make sure that our system allows the customer, the broker in this case, to be able to fix these things quickly without having to call up support every single time there's a problem, presumably.
Yeah. So this is a common thing that we actually have, and something that a lot of our clients actually really like about TLC, which is the ability to basically you can edit almost everything. So I say, for example, you've mistyped a trade or something's gone wrong with trade entry and order entry. We offer the full ability to edit any part of that trade or order you want to correct it. And the important thing there is, you want to be able to offer that full flexibility to the people who should have access to fully edit stuff, but you also still want to then strike the balance of locking down to make sure that not everyone's got full access to edit anything with, and we make sure to keep a strong audit trail as well of any edits as well, with which user is edited, when, timestamps, that sort of thing. But we have basically a system in place which allows us to, again, with those sort of roles that we've configured before and permissions, decide who has access to edit what. But in theory, we then also allow the ability for the users who the client decides they want to give access to be able to edit and amend any sort of data through both the GUI and basically through the GUI, which will update stuff in the database, and that'll go back through into Power BI and everything else we talked about as well.
And having the good audit trail in place and all those guardrails and everything you discuss is even more important once you actually open that up to your own clients, to allow them to self-serve, which a lot of brokers across the industry are really looking to explore and experiment with new ways of improving business by allowing more self-service in effect to their customers. So once you open that up, in effect, what are sort of the key things you need to watch out for then? Once you've made that decision, okay, I'm now going to turn on my TLC platform, give my customers access to, hopefully put in more trades than they otherwise would.
Yes. Essentially, it all comes down to locking down access control, which both comes from the permissioning route of what they can do on, for example, a GUI or a mobile app, or however you're going to choose to give access to your clients. But it also then the step above that is like maybe trading permissions. Maybe as a brokerage, you offer a plethora of instruments, but you only want certain clients to be able to enter orders for certain instruments that for whatever reason. So we allow that level of configuration as well. And then also you can then choose, if you, for example, don't want to give them permission to be able to edit their orders, for a client, they need to call up the brokerage and be like, oh, actually that was a mistaken order, can you please cancel that order, or can you amend that order, that sort of thing. So really, again, it comes back down to configuration of flexibility, and giving our clients the choice of how much of the system, how much of their control they take from maybe their desks and give it to the clients. And it's totally up to them. And we really do have a lot of levers we can pull to fully configure exactly what they want clients to do. And again, it can be individually per client. It doesn't have to be like all clients can then trade this instrument. It can be by order volume. It can be by, all sorts of things.
There's lots of guardrails and lots of safety in place, so they can make these choices with some confidence. There's another question that's coming. So, given what you said about client exposure to third parties, data, etc., do you find yourselves dealing with risk departments as well as ops and IT on an implementation? The short answer is yes, there is. It's fine.
Yes, we do. We work with the cross departments when we start a project. But again, at the beginning of the project, we work cross department, make sure everyone is in agreement about how it's going to work. And then also, in the case where once every now and again, events do happen where issues with third parties, will end up reaching out to the client, and a lot of those calls will include cross department people to make sure everyone's in agreement on how we proceed and how we handle these events that come up swiftly.
To finish off, it may be worth noting, obviously, you mentioned at the start of the project how important that is about capturing high level requirements and so on. Obviously, during the project and when it comes to testing out, new releases of the system that we deploy to our customers, then we do get all departments again, and often we encourage that to get them involved in trying out the system, testing the system, providing feedback as well. So when we do eventually put it into production, they've all had a good chance of becoming familiar with the system and understanding how the processes work, especially some of those risk-related processes, which are so critical.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've covered a fair bit of time. Thanks, Spike, for joining. I'll let you go and get back to some real work.
Thanks for having me.
To do in the run-up to Christmas. Thanks everyone for joining this afternoon. We'll let you know when the next Sinara webinar is scheduled sometime in the new year. If you've been interested in anything that we've discussed today and want to talk a little bit more, maybe have a look at some of the ways in which we can use TLC to improve some of these challenges, which maybe you're looking at, do give us a chat. We are around and we're always very happy to talk. Have a great rest of the day and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.